This is PJNET.TV, and this is my perspective and comments. In this video segment of My Perspective and Comments, we cover politics, society here and abroad, and the events of the day that are shaping our nation. PJNET.TV, My Perspective and Comment, coming to you with a worldview, one nation under God. Hello and welcome to My Perspective and Comments. And we'll start out with updates with COVID. We have a lot of activity. We have a lot now that's been coming out from FDA now saying that, hey, 18 plus months now, and we had the FDA trials, Operation Warp Speed, and we heard, keeping of these vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, all staying in their lanes. Well, now we hear this past week, hey, I guess we can mix and match these boosters, and, nothing, hey, they're authorizing it. And I guess I just like to, maybe throw this question out there. Were there clinical trials for these drug companies getting together and saying, okay, here's Pfizer, here's our drug here, so for this trial, for these trials, okay, we'll mix and match, and we'll go through this experimental process here and see if they're compatible and the outcomes are positive. Do you remember hearing that, folks? That the mixing and matching of these different vaccines from these various companies now have been, they have gone through the rigorous testing and trials. Just a question I was throwing out there now. Safety trials that before a drug can come to market, it needs to meet a criteria of safety, and mixing boosters, was that talked about between these various companies? Boy, I wonder if that was part of these clinical trials that some patients were when they volunteered to go into those trials, or maybe we have a different experiment that's taking place now, where if the vaccines are going forward now, and I guess everybody is a test subject. I don't know, just saying, sure sounds like that's the direction that we're going now. Where all of a sudden FDA says, oh yeah, we can mix and match these boosters. Something to think about. But we're hearing now that boosters are another booster will be ready to come out. We're also hearing that they're pushing forward to get our children, getting them a vaccine, and young, from I believe it's 11 to 5-year-olds now, they're looking to give them the jab. So here again, we see our kids now being put forth as those that will be eligible for the jab. And again, how long will it be before we see more and more of these blue states saying, okay, yeah, they've got the jab now, so don't show up to school unless you've gotten the shot. And I believe that that might be some of the incentive that is being, why the urgency to get these drugs in our kids' arms, school-age kids, so that another mandate can come out about, like what California just enacted or are trying to enact. To make it mandatory. You want to send your kids to our schools here in California, they better get the jab. So once again, another area of parents being able to look out for their kids. And now you've got the government saying, yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, parent. We got this covered. We'll take care of your kids for you. Make sure they get the jab before they come to school. So, and we see the mandates that have been going on here. New York, de Blasio, the mayor in New York, pushing these mandates for the workers there now in his city, that they've got to get the jab or they're going to lose their job. But this past week, a tremendous display in New York City. Thousands of protesters came out to push back against these mandates from de Blasio. What it was called, it was the New York City Broadway Rally for Freedom. And it started out with crowds of, say, hundreds showed up, and it swelled to over 1,000 by this past Saturday. About 1 o'clock, there was well over, in fact, not just 1,000, but there were thousands of protesters that were out there against this mandate coming down from de Blasio, and backed up by Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who has been mandating healthcare workers are need to get the jab. But again, as I mentioned last week, there's been a pushback, and the judge has stepped in and said, no, this has to play out, and we need to get testimony, and it needs to come to the courts before you're going to fire these healthcare workers. There is exemptions that we need to be brought forth to the court and be heard. So there was some brakes put on in that situation. But there seems to be more and more an aggressive push by many of these governors and some mayors, like Lightfoot there in Chicago, who wants the police and the public workers there in her city, that they needed to get the jab, and the police union have been fighting tooth and nail, and they've said no. And so there's an impasse. Well, there isn't an impasse. I mean, they're saying no. They're not having their police officers taking that jab. So we see, though, the push is on to and with these mandates. One highlight or a bit of good news here is we talked last week what Southwest was doing, and the impact of the pilots that, they kept saying, the pilots union there for Southwest said this was not a sick out. This was, there are other factors that were involved. But we have heard now this past week that Southwest Airlines just backed off the plan to put unvaccinated employees on unpaid leave. The Dallas-based carrier confirmed reports of the memo that went out this past Tuesday, saying that it will drop that plan. Delta Airlines has announced that they would not be going down this road, this destructive mandate road either. So we're seeing when it comes to people rising up, standing up and saying, no, we're not, we will not comply. You will not give us this experiment. We will not be part of your countrywide and global-wide experiment. No, we will not comply with that. And we're seeing it taking place here in New York with many of the protests. Healthcare workers, doctors and nurses saying no. We're seeing areas in hospitals that are shutting down because they can't meet the patient need. In fact, here in upstate New York, in the Syracuse area, they've actually, in some cases during the week, said we can't take any emergency. The ambulance don't come here because we can't handle it. Come back in 4 hours while we try and alleviate and bring the numbers down and process patients through. So we're seeing things like that happening. We're also seeing pushback display in New York, a little bit there in California, Chicago, and people are slowly here in the States starting to wake up. But what I'd like us to keep in mind here too, that what you're not seeing in the news is there's protests going on. There's been protests going on around the world for about 6 to 8 months now in some of these other countries. And we're going to talk a little bit about that near the end of my perspective. What I'd like, again, to talk about the debacle that's taking place, another area. We've seen it, and we're still not through Afghanistan and the mess and the tragedy and those Americans left behind. But we're also seeing, you go to the West Coast and you see a line, a backup of the ships offshore that they can't offload their cargo because there's nobody to unload them at our docks. Containers, ships full of containers of products, and now they're starting to say, well, Christmas might be lean, or no products on the shelf. Now Biden came out and late last week and said, oh yeah, we've talked to those at the port, and it's going to be 24/7 for some time now. I've authorized it, but you're hearing the experts saying it's going to be, it won't even be next year before they're caught up. So one mess after another under this administration, and you hear the nonsense coming out of their mouth by the transportation secretary here, Buttigieg, saying, well, this is a good thing. This is showing that there's so much demand out there, pent up demand for products. You see, we can't get the products here. We're not going to have the products. It's setting out on ships, but they can sure spin a good web here. And that's not the point. The point is that the failure of this administration to look out and see what's coming down the pike. A leader. We're looking for a leader, one that doesn't get caught leading, as we saw under Obama. leading from behind. Here we go again, but this is leading from behind times 10 under this failed president. And we're seeing more and more people, they're starting to wake up. The polls right now are showing Biden under, 28% for those moderates. So there is an awakening, and people are starting to express their dissatisfaction of where we are as a nation. And I guarantee, if what we're being told right now, with the shelves for Christmas are going to be empty, I think you're going to see those polls go even further, a further dip. So a lot of light is being shined, and we knew that there was an issue during the election when the questions and the campaigning and the appropriate probing of what this guy would do when he got in the White House. We heard some of it, and it was disturbing, but he's in there now, and what he said he was going to do, we're starting to see that playing out more and more. And we were concerned during the election. We said, this guy is not going to be good for this country. We're going to see America weakened. And that's what we're seeing now. Weakened at the southern border. Weakened around the world. Weakened in the Middle East. Weakened when it comes to the threats that are out there, like China, like Iran, like North Korea. And we're seeing it playing out right before our eyes, and this guy doesn't even have a clue that's in the White House. Any given day, he's out of it. And you just wonder, who is running this country? So, a lot of things that have been happening here in the States and around the globe, and that's what I would like to talk about right now. These mandates and these countries that have been forcing mandates and passports on their people. There's a globe that's many countrymen are standing up and saying no. And they're saying we will not comply. And here in the States, the land of the free, it's almost as if we're in a trance like Biden. Deer in the headlights, and we're just going to take it. And what I'd like us to we've got some videos that I'd like us to take a look at how and the reaction that's taking place in other countries. We're starting to see in America, New York City, for example, the people getting out there and protesting. Things are starting to happen in some other areas in the cities in the country, in our nation. But what I like you to see is what's happening in Europe. And what are the people there saying? And I would like you to take a look at the protests. I mean, it's not just one weekend. It's not just during the week, but throughout this globe right now we have people protesting throughout the week and the weekends. Every weekend we're seeing nations rising up, people in those nations, and saying, no, we won't comply. These mandates, these traveling and vaccine passports that are being pushed on them, they're pushing back against it. So I see that happening in these around the globe. It's starting to people in our nation are starting to wake up and say no. They've pushed us, and now they're mandating, and they want to shoot. They want to put vaccines in our kids' arms. They've gone to 5 right now, the age 5, but it won't be long before they start talking about, well, now we've got a booster that we can inject even kids that are younger than that. If we don't stand up and say no, enough of this, then it's going to continue, and the tyranny and the mandate against the people here in the country will continue until Americans rise up and say no more. We will not comply. Get your boot off our necks. And I think there's an awakening, and we'll be keeping a close eye on things that are happening. We're starting to see what has taken place here in our school systems, that parents are waking up. We also heard that Merrick Garland was before the Congress explaining what he was trying to do with the DOJ, arming the DOJ against American citizens. Parents somehow were demonized because they want the best for their kids, and they want to have a say in what's being taught in the school system. They want to have a say on who's going in their daughters' bathrooms, that their daughter should be able to go into the bathroom without a guy coming in along behind them. Safety. School safety is what the parents are demanding. But if they demand something, then all of a sudden they're terrorists, because they want to hold some of these school board members and superintendents accountable, like we've seen in Loudoun County. And just an update, there has been a resignation. One of the members there on the school board, one of the ones that had been pushing all this critical race theory, transgender activities with the bathrooms and athletics, pushing that in Loudoun County, has stepped down. And as I mentioned before, it seemed the timing was before a judge was going to come in and hear the case against the Loudoun County Board, and conveniently stepped down before that took place. So we're going to keep you updated. I mean, this isn't going away. We have elections that will be taking place here in the next couple, from right now, early voting, and in the next couple of weeks, and a lot of those agendas as far as schools and initiatives from some of these states to push crack down on the Americans in various communities. So a lot to keep our eyes on, folks. I mean, it's moving fast, and right now, in the middle of this $3.5 trillion boondoggle, waste of money, and a lot of the mandates, health mandates, are all crammed in this bill. So much that's that will hurt this nation, and I just wonder how much the GOP supposed leadership is going to let slide right on in. You've got Mitch McConnell is almost to a point of useless. He is in the pocket of Schumer, and you almost wonder how much are these two in agreement, mindset-wise, and the direction to take this nation. And when all's said and done, these compromises, Mitch McConnell outright could say, no, we're not going to be, we're not going to support this legislation, period. But he won't. He'll go along and it'll sound good, but at the end of the day, we end up losing, and we see a bill get passed that has all this stuff crammed in, mandates and expenditures for all kinds of stuff. And as Pelosi has said before, hey, just pass the bill. You'll find out what's in it later. We just need to get this legislation passed. And that's what's been happening far too long. It's just passing a bill to get it passed, or having legislation that kicks and when it comes to budgetary matters, kick the can down the road and really do not address the many of the fiscal issues that this nation is facing right now. But what I'd like us to take a look here is what's been taking place around the globe when it comes to mandates and the people rising up and protesting. I'd also, Tucker Carlson has a few things that I'd like to have you listen to and watch. And Ron DeSantis, a leadership again. And I just want to, in making a quick note before we take a look at these videos, I'm a little disappointed with Texas and Greg Abbott. The legislature was there. They could have made legislation and put together legislation similar to what took place in Florida. But what did they do? Especially when you had Biden threatening to these mandates and giving them a time limit on these shot mandates and using the companies to do their dirty work. Texas could have made a stand. Abbott could have pushed and said, we're not going home until we get legislation to address this and push back against this tyranny from the Biden administration. But no, they recessed, went home, and did not deal with the pressing issues that the residents there in Texas would be facing with these mandates looming from the Biden administration. So a little disappointed. It seems like there are some cases where you almost have to drag Abbott screaming on a way to make legislation. Sometimes it's not as if he's driven to protect his people. It's when he's forced to, or when there's enough states around that are protecting and bringing legislation for the people, that he's almost he says, well, I better join the crowd, or they're going to be looking at me as not doing what needs to be done for the Texas residents. So a little disappointed with Greg Abbott right now, and that especially when you think of it's a Republican legislature. You've got a Republican governor, so it wouldn't have been hard for him to say, I want something on my desk right now to push back and to negate what Biden is doing. But that didn't happen. We'll talk a little bit more about Texas, and people need to rise up and call in if you live in Texas and say, what happened here? What happened here? Letting the legislature go home without getting something to push back against Biden and these mandates. So we'll talk more about Texas and maybe there can be an outcry to get the legislature back. But right now, I'd like us to take a look here at we'll see Tucker Carlson, Ron DeSantis, what's been taking place around the globe when it comes to the outrage and the protests that you don't see in the media. But they're happening, and they've been happening now for about 8 months, where people have been out in the streets on the weekend protesting what's been taking place, especially when it comes to the mandates. So let's take a few minutes here and take a look at some of these videos. Here, take a look.